And to do this under the context of Holy Land, like we are chosen by whom? Satan? That's the only thing that makes sense. You have to be chosen by Satan. You have to be chosen by Satan. You have to be chosen by Satan. So let me tell you about this Brigitte Macron story and how I came across it, because like I told Piers Morgan, no, of course, this did not come from me. Why would I just be sitting around as an American citizen being like, I wonder if I could look into a French conspiracy theory? Of course not. I was actually just reading the Daily Mail one day, and I saw a headline about how Emmanuel Macron was absolutely furious about these rumors. And I was like, what rumors? I haven't even heard about anything. And then I stumbled upon quite a pretty big situation that has been going on in France, in that it has gotten so big that, yes, Macron has been tasked now with going out to the public and trying to dissuade them from believing that his wife, Brigitte Macron, was actually born a man. Now, of course, when I saw the headline, I agreed. I was like, yeah, that is absolutely insane. Let me read this article real quick. And the article stipulated that there was a theory. And immediately, in reading the article, my mockingbird senses came on. I realized that the article itself was also not debunking anything, and this should be a very easy thing to debunk. Rather, they were just doing what Barry Weiss was doing, what Piers was doing, and just saying it was crazy. Now, in this article, they had only 2 photos embedded as proof that Brigitte Macron ever lived as a woman for the first 30 years of her life. Here are the 2 photos. I'm going to show them to you. Here's the first photo. And they basically were just like, look at cute little Brigitte Macron sitting on her mother's lap. And instantly, I promise you, I hadn't even looked into the primary source of the story. And I said, well, that's weird, because Brigitte looks to me like the person on the far left. That is Brigitte's whole face. I mean, you looking at this? I mean, if you're listening to this in a podcast, do go find it on YouTube thereafter. But I went, no, that actually, the person on the lap doesn't look anything like Brigitte. Whatever. Then I looked at photo 2 that they presented, and I went, wait, Brigitte's quite old. This does not look like a photo that is that old. This actually looks like a new photo that was just turned into black and white. Whatever, I put it in the back of my mind. I decided to go pursue the primary source, and I was shocked at what I stumbled upon. You guys, this was not some Reddit conspiracy theory. This was not some people sitting around with tinfoil hats being like, let's just make up a rumor about the First Lady of France. No, far from that. This was a story that was worked on for 3 years by journalists, which was eventually published in a 6-part series in a publication known as Faits et Documents. Xavier Poussard worked on the story, Natasha Ray worked on the story, and they crossed hands with genealogists who worked on this story. So again, no, this was not some random conspiracy theory. This was 3 years of hard work. And what they determined was that Brigitte Macron did not exist for the first 30 years of her life. Listen to what I'm saying to you. There is no proof that this human being existed for 30 years. It's a very easy thing to debunk, guys. Okay, very easy thing to debunk. If somebody came at me and said, Candace Owens, you did not exist for the first 30 years, I'd be like, what are you crazy? Here's my high school yearbook. Here's my middle school yearbook. Here's me and the homies standing outside with 2 thin eyebrows because that was the style when I was in high school. Here's me, a picture of me cheerleading. Here's me when I played the flute for 6 months. Here's me and my sisters. It's such a nonsense that I would instead send out people to call it crazy without giving them 30 years worth of proof to debunk it. Let's not forget, Brigitte Macron also has 3 kids. I could show you photos of me pregnant. Oh, here's me in the hospital when we had our first child. They're not doing any of that. Instead, what they did, as you just heard me say on Piers Morgan, is they sent the Secret Service out to intimidate the journalists. Yeah, while Natasha Ray was working on the story, she was getting close. She realized that there was one woman that she should question. Well, this woman happens to still be friends with Brigitte Macron, and she alerted the Macrons to the fact that journalists were working on this story. And so the Secret Service showed up at Natasha Ray's home, detained her, intimidated her, took her phone, wanted to know who else was working on the story. This is simply not something you do when you are telling the truth. And by the way, they're still doing it. Natasha was the first victim, but not the last. There was also a journalist for a Parisian liberal establishment publication called Le Nouvel Obs, who jumped on the story because she thought this is insane. It's going to be very easy for me to debunk it. And obviously, Brigitte is in fact a woman. And guess what happened? That journalist could not debunk the story. She too was amazed at what she was discovering. And then she too was tracked down by the Secret Service. So what is this theory that the state is working so hard to protect? What is this secret, rather, that they're working so hard to protect? I'm going to tell you what it is that the journalists are alleging. And I think it's a very credible allegation.
Candace Owens is one of the most transparent, grifty charlatans in the entire MAGA movement. She is a vile, as far as I'm concerned. Look, obviously not black, haven't lived a black experience, but I can empathize and put myself into the shoes of people. And if I had a traitor in the midst, I think I would feel the way that a lot of people feel in the black community about Candace Owens.
Thank you, Pierce, for having me, and Candace, thank you for debating me. I have spent my life bringing together the black and Jewish communities, emphasizing that we share not only a history of shared persecution, but of spiritual promise. Today we debate an American tragedy, a woman of unique eloquence who has abused that eloquence to become simultaneously the foremost anti-black rhetorician in all of the United States and the foremost anti-Semite in America.
Ad hominem attacks are strongly discouraged.
The statements that Candace has made against her own community, that they cry wolf and constantly say that they're victims of racism. Her attacks on George Floyd, a man who was suffocated to death for a $20 counterfeit note saying that he was a horrible human being. A woman who went up in front of CPAC and said, "I was never a slave in America," as if that's the only form of discrimination, is what has led her community to call her not Candace, but Clandis. To call her not Candace, but Clandis.
To call her not Candace, but Clandis.
The first ever female black woman who appears in her rhetoric against blacks, calling LeBron James dumb and stupid, an icon to the black community, as Clandis. As Clandis.
As Clandis.
Simultaneously, you have the Jewish community beginning to call her not Candace Owens, but Candace Ovens, because her Goebbels-style rhetoric against Jews, that Jews are nearly all pedophiles. The State of Israel has set up a Theodor Herzl, a pedophile, as a haven for pedophiles. That Judaism is a demonic, satanic cult that only protects pedophiles. And by the way, her absolute obsession with Jewish sexuality and Jewish genitalia, the first Lady of France, Brigitte Macron's genitalia, is disturbing. It's one of the reasons I think she hates Sigmund Freud so much, because she's a Freudian field dream in terms of his arguments that the greater the sexual suppression and repression, the greater we see violence.
Rabbi Shmuley, I'm interrupting because you've now been speaking for 3 minutes.
One final point.
So Candace will get exactly the same amount of time. It's up to you, but it's an opening statement, right? And what I would say...
May I just say finally, if I may?
Well, if it's quick,
The biggest issue I have with Candace, to be honest, is that she claims to be a Christian. Candace, didn't Jesus say you're supposed to love your enemies? Is the love you show me that you call me filth twice on the last show that you did with Pierce a piece of filth? You're supposed to love your enemies. Is that turning the other cheek? And Pierce, you're an English gentleman. I've known you for many years. You allowed her to say that without even a piece of filth. When Jesus said that you're supposed to turn the other cheek, where have you ever turned the other cheek? When Jesus said that the meek shall inherit the earth, the arrogance, the nonstop attack against Jews, the demonization. If you are a Christian, then I am the second coming of Christ.
Okay.
Here's what I would like to say to you, Rabbi, since you're quoting scripture, okay? The one that's relevant to me is, woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness. And if you'd like to dive into a little more scripture, I think what's relevant is Revelation 3:9. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. And I'm speaking directly to you, Rabbi Shmuley. the fact that you would try to say, I am Jewish and this is what I believe, and do and say the things that you are doing. People can see and hear evil, and what you are doing right now is an act of evil. The lies that you are telling, not just on me, but also on my family members, are a good example for the world to see what we are referring to when we call something radical Zionism. At this moment in time, at this moment in history, who God's chosen actually are. And it ain't the Polish Bibi Netanyahu. If there's ever been to me any person that I would say most clearly represents the synagogue of Satan, it would be that man and maybe Rabbi Shmuley.
She is just fucking vile. And now maybe there will be a little accountability. And the funny thing, when I read a little bit from this Washington Post article, is that she is making the claim that the foreign government is trying to take away her First Amendment rights, which is just a fundamental lack of understanding, just rank ignorance on the part of Candace Owens, because the First Amendment is that Congress shall make no law regarding abridging the freedom of speech. It's about Congress making a law, not about foreign governments. The foreign government has no obligation whatsoever to protect your First Amendment right under the United States' Constitution, Candy.
Let me bring this in, freedom of press, because this is what we have here in America. Freedom of press, freedom of speech, freedom to assembly. And France, I don't know how far their freedom of press extends, but I think they're barking up the wrong tree, because you had the audacity to send a lawsuit to a United States citizen. So freedom of press, how much protection do we have when it comes
to a whole lot. You can say anything you want to. It may be subject to a civil action for defamation, which is what this is. It's not against the law. But in England, they right now have a headline case over there where they're trying to put somebody in jail for 5 years in an English prison because he put into words that a very out of shape, very overworked member of parliament was fat. So that's supposed to be against the criminal laws of England. See, we don't have that. We have a basis of English law, but the First Amendment was put in to be reflected in our Constitution so that what they could hypothetically do in England could not be done here. You see, you can be put in jail for calling somebody the F word, or calling somebody gay like you're trying to insult them, or calling somebody the N word, or calling somebody fat, or out of shape, or queer, or strange. You see, in France, if you get arrested, you are presumed guilty until you prove yourself innocent. They don't have juries in France. They say, through the principle of l'homme conviction, which means the gut reaction of a wise man is as reliable as a 12-man English jury. So you get jacked up by the gendarmerie, you have to prove yourself not guilty. But they won't mess with you like they do over here.
Anyway, here's the headline from the Washington Post. French President Macron sues right-wing podcaster Candace Owens. Owens disregarded 3 retraction requests after making defamatory allegations, according to the lawsuit. French President Emmanuel Macron and his wife filed a defamation lawsuit Wednesday against Candace Owens over the far-right commentator's repeated allegations that First Lady Brigitte Macron was born a man. The lawsuit, filed in Delaware, alleges that Owens ignored the Macrons' attempts to set the record straight in favor of mocking them and retaliated when they requested a retraction. Part of this is funny. Part of this is just run-of-the-mill nonsense from Republicans who make wild allegations. They build wild conspiracy theories for clicks, for clout, for money, ultimately. Part of this is very dangerous because it continues the ongoing war against trans people, against trans kids, against the most vulnerable population in our country, and dare I say maybe the world, relative to oppression from government, relative to beatings and death, and the feelings of worthlessness or whatever that would cause someone to want to harm themselves. Suicide rates in the trans community are off the charts.
Well, this lawsuit is 219 pages.
Ridiculous. And actually, I read some of this, but I forgot what the caption said. Most of what I read has been held many times to be permissible to say about a public figure. But you see, here's this thing. In America, they're trying to get this rainbow cult thing in the same position it is in France and England. So if you say anything negative about it, you have committed something that's civilly actionable and criminally actionable as well. They aren't even trying right now to go criminally active, but they're trying to work on the civil thing. But since Kamala got held off and stomped on last November, they are not in a position, fortunately, to try to make what this guy is talking about criminal here in America like it is in France.
The state of Delaware, Emmanuel Macron, Brigitte Macron against Candace Owens. The French president and his wife are suing a right-wing podcaster in the US for reviving claims that Brigitte Macron could be a man. Now, the lawsuit accuses Candace Owens of carrying out what the Macron's lawyer calls a relentless year-long campaign of defamation. Owens teased on social media that she will address the story on a podcast in the coming hours. We've reached out to her for further comment. Tom Clare is the attorney representing the Macrons and joins me now. Mr. Clare, I'm grateful. You will forgive me. I've not read much of the 219 pages at this point, but it's still early days. Look, Tom. Politicians, the Macrons, they're used to having everything thrown at them. Why did they decide on this occasion this had to be litigated and therefore into the full glare of publicity?
Of course. Thanks for having me, Richard. The Macrons, just like any other person, have a reputation and they have a right to their reputation. And this was not in any way their first choice, was to have to bring this claim. For the better part of 7 months, they have tried to get Candace Owens to acknowledge the facts and evidence proving that her claims are wrong and to engage constructively with the truth. And each time she has mocked them and she has repeated and doubled down on her false claims. And I would say also, these types of false statements become a cancer, right? They metastasize into other media outlets, and pretty soon it becomes an accepted part of the narrative. And the president and Mrs. Macron had enough. This is somebody who has put herself, with Candace Owens, has put herself at the epicenter of this lie here in the United States, and they feel it's important to hold her accountable.
Don't you feel that you're just going to give it more oxygen? And yes, eventually the Macrons may prevail in cases, but there'll be depositions, there'll be witness statements. They're going to have to, what you do if suddenly it goes to trial, which it probably won't do, but if it goes to trial and Owens calls the Macrons.
What court is it filed in? I can't read that.
It says, in the Superior Court of the State of Delaware.
Okay, how do they get jurisdiction in Delaware since she does not live there? This is a civil action filed in a state court. What jurisdiction does Delaware have over Candace Owens, who is a resident of Tennessee? And he is a resident of a foreign country. So how does he file in Delaware? See, it could get dismissed on a technical basis for that reason. Next thing is she talked about she wants discovery. Be careful when you file a defamation action, because you then become wide open to civil discovery, and they can ask about rumors, innuendo, demand documents, and all sorts of things, and they can basically publish their case up front on what they are basing their claims on. Next thing, since 1962 in the United States, with the case of New York Times versus Sullivan, the United States Supreme Court has set forth some rather interesting guidelines when it comes to any potential claims of defamation by a public figure. And the Premier of France certainly qualifies as a public figure. Next thing, this is not France, this is not England, this is the United States, and under our First Amendment, we have a right to make scathing political commentary or social commentary. As long as it's not with malicious intent known to be false from the front end, it can also be hyperbole, where you are making a political point. A lot of times in American history, when somebody does a political cartoon, the villain of the cartoon is portrayed as a snake or some vile, villainous creature, or features are exaggerated. So somebody that is one of the, in charge of the executive branch of a member of NATO and a long-standing political entity that started off when Rollo of Ragnar Lothbrok fame and the Vikings came in and got given a fief in what became Normandy to keep his Viking brethren out of France. And the ancestor of the last king of France, who was Louis XIV, and his wife Marie Antoinette famously uttered, allegedly, the phrase, "let them eat cake," before she lost her head over it. Well, since then, back more than 1,000 years, this has been a main country. And certainly if you're the premier over such an entity, you are subject to scathing political commentary. And she's talking about her First Amendment opposition to what is developing in the United States as a cult that seeks to impose itself on the rest of the country.
But it's this question about the French First Lady, Brigitte Macron, who you keep saying is a man. You produced zero evidence that she is a man. It's been deeply offensive to her husband, President Macron, to all of her family. You keep promoting it to millions of people that follow you. And I simply ask why. She's not a man, she's a woman.
I'm happy to answer the question. I think Brigitte Macron is a trans woman, and I think the fact that
not.
when Brigitte Macron... Okay.
Where's your evidence that she is?
Well, Piers, the thing is I'm not allowed to speak after you ask me a question, so I don't really know what the purpose of this is anymore. You just seem to kind of be saying your own thoughts. So I'm just going to be silent here and allow you to monologue.
Where is your evidence that Brigitte Macron is transgender?
Well, I did an entire series talking about where this came from. And first and foremost, you're pretending that I'm the one that promulgated this. In fact, it was 3 journalists in France that worked on the story for 3 years.
Right.
And they teamed up with genealogists and they came across, and it was absolutely fascinating. I read the entire report, and everybody watching this, rather than listen to Piers Morgan giving you a bunch of adjectives, ridiculous, it's awful, I can't believe that she's saying this. Why don't you go pursue a primary source?
So what I want people to know about this case with the Candace Owens being sued by Brigitte Macron and the French president, because she said that Brigitte Macron's a man. What I want people to know is that I'm also mentioned in the lawsuit.
This is why it's important, guys.
So this is why it's important. So
you got your shows coming up.
So it says Jimmy Owens repeated her false claims in an episode, encouraging viewers to reject scientific findings in favor of following their gut. On July 7th, 2004, Owens presented these false claims on The Jimmy Dore Show. Jimmy Dore is a stand-up comedian turned political commentator who regularly promotes conspiracy theories. All I have to say, you know what I say about that? Go!
Gonna ride some of that sweet Candace coattails, I hope.
I got it in. I'm in it.
Robert, did you read this before you tweeted she's cooked? This nonsense.
This is nonsense.
Oh no, you promoted a conspiracy.
Jimmy, by the way, every conspiracy I've ever been accused of pushing has turned into a conspiracy fact. Whether it be Russiagate, whether it be the Democrats recovering for Hillary's health problems, whether it be Syria gas attacks, whether it be the Ukraine war, whether it be COVID and masks and lockdown, and where the virus came from, and Fauci's a liar, and lockdowns were no science, and the vaccine didn't stop transmission and contraction. No matter what, the side effects, the adverse events, way higher than any other vaccine in the. No matter what it was, I was right about it. That was called a conspiracy theory. I was called a grifter.
The one story that I have seen in the past few years that I was just like, I can't go there. That's just flat Earth stuff. Is the Brigitte Macron, Emmanuel Macron, President of France's wife, was accused first by French journalists, and then by my friend Candace Owens, who's one of the nicest people I've ever met, actually.
Yeah, she's
very
incredible.
smart.
She's incredible.
She and everyone's always, Candace Owens a hater. Candace Owens is the opposite of a hater, but she's a very kind person. But anyway, but she comes out and she's like, I will wager my professional credibility on the claim that Macron's wife is actually a man. And I was like, oh, Candace Owens, I love you, but I think this is too crazy.
Yeah.
And then it turns out she's right.
Yeah.
What is so? Can you just explain? My mind is blown.
Well, my wife has been by the way, the Candace Owens pieces on this are phenomenal. And so I'll be sitting there, my wife, I'm like, what are you watching? She's like, I'm watching Candace Owens' whole deep dive on this. So let's give credit, I'm giving full credit to Candace Owens on this for really opening this story up from the French journalists who first broke it and then were, I think, like ostracized or basically told not to report it. So that, yeah, I mean, he's a groomer. So, the fact that Emmanuel Macron was a child and this man takes him under his wing and is a groomer, uses the identity of another human being. I mean, I'm definitely shortening the story in all of these ways, but I don't know the full details the way that Candace does for sure. But Brigitte Macron is a man who groomed Emmanuel Macron, and in their, the amazing thing to me is the French portrait that they have, the presidential portrait or whatever. In the background, you can see like a pedophile book that's painted in on purpose. Like you can't make this stuff up.
What?
The official French portrait painting. There's in the background of it, you can see basically a pedophile book that's been painted in on purpose.
Well, it's interesting. Right here, Jimmy, it says to reject scientific findings in favor of following their gut. What scientific findings has the Macron represented at all in this case? I haven't read anything scientific.
Yeah, she won't even show a picture of herself before she was 30.
I'd like to talk to scientists who establish her dog. That's a great point.
And so, so I'm in it, and I want to say thanks to Laura Powell who let me know I was in it. I didn't know I was in it until she tweeted it out. Thanks, Laura.
You're so cooked, Jimmy.
I'm cooked. Also,
cook. I don't know what that means, but I'm going to say it every day now.
Candace Owens tweeted out, for those who haven't seen the Becoming Brigitte series, start here. It will take just one episode for you to realize the truth.
That's true.
It truly is a much-watched series. It is. I've watched it. It truly is a much-watched series. The Macrons aren't suing journalists halfway around the world because we lied. If they were lying, they would just dismiss it as lies. That's my theory, anyway.
Hey,
you don't give this much attention. This is the same reason
Tom
why
Cruise made this mistake.
This is the same reason why I don't bring on. Yeah, Tom Cruise made this mistake. When he jumped up on the couch to say, "I really like women." Remember that? It was a little bit. He was a little over the top on Oprah's couch. You remember that, Kurt? Right? That's what you're talking about.
Now, it wasn't quite the level of Will Smith's new video, "I Like Pretty Girls."
Oh, yes.
For its day, for its day, it was really something.
For its day. So what was I just saying? I was in the middle of. So yeah, that's it's another reason why if you make a bad faith slander of me, something you know is not true, and then a lot of people have done that and say, well, bring me on your show and challenge me. No, you don't get to make a false because some people will do that. Some people will some people will, if you say negative things about them that aren't true, they'll bring you on their show. I don't do that. I've decided 10 years ago when I started this show that there's too many of those people, and they do it all the time. They'll go,
well, certainly not if their following is less than your following.
And they'll
what do you get out of that?
And so, yes, they say, bring me on the show, and I'm like, I can't do.
Who are you?
So I have a rule that I don't. I almost broke it recently, but I didn't. But I have a rule. If you're making a bad faith argument about me, I'm not only am I not going to mention it, but I'm not going to bring you on the show.
Why don't you just go pursue a primary source?
Well,
Because I'm not the primary source. It would be very easy to dispute this. All Brigitte Macron would have to do is produce a single photo of her in the first 30 years of her life, or to go on a little walk with her brother, who she alleges that she is not.
Actually,
she refuses to do either. She's suing people, and the one photo that they keep producing is a photo of her daughter to phone that has been photoshopped. Let me get a word in, please.
Brigitte Macron, as you know, has a libel trial against Natasha Ray, who made the claims that the French First Lady was born a man called Jean-Michel Trogneux. It's due to take place imminently, and we will get to the bottom of this. And I'll bet you, why don't we have like £100,000 bet that it establishes beyond any doubt to a charity of your choice and mine, $100,000, make it dollars, right now, that it is established beyond any doubt that she was born a woman.
A French appeals court on Thursday, July 10th, overturned convictions against two women accused of libel against French First Lady Brigitte Macron after they spread false claims she used to be a man. Disinformation on Macron's gender has circulated on social media for years. She has also been attacked over the 24-year age difference with President Emmanuel Macron. The 72-year-old First Lady filed a libel complaint against two women after they posted a YouTube video in December 2021, alleging she had once been a man named Jean-Michel. In the video, defendant Amandine Roy, a self-proclaimed spiritual medium, interviewed Natasha Ray, a self-described independent journalist, for 4 hours on her YouTube channel. Ray spoke about the state lie and scam she claimed to have uncovered, that a certain Jean-Michel Trogneux had changed gender to become Brigitte, then married the president. They discussed surgery she was supposed to have undergone and revealed personal information about the First Lady's brother, Jean-Michel. The claim went viral, including recently among conspiracy theorists in the United States. A lower court in September last year ordered the two women to pay €8,000 in damages to Macron and €5,000 to her brother. But the Paris appeals court on Thursday let them off, arguing they had made the mistake in good faith. The defendants will no longer have to pay the damages. The court did not provide further explanations.
Make it rain, Piers. Make it rain, okay? Because, look, first and foremost, 100,000 pounds. Can we look up what that means in U.S. dollars? Let's see what that... $136,000. I'll round it up. Let's round it up to $1 there. 136,000 U.S. dollars are mine. Piers, I'm not going to let you get away with this. I want my money. It's gonna be like that Family Guy scene where Stewie's like beating up Brian. I want my money. Where's my money? Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's how it started, and this is how it's going. Check out this headline. We are trending all over France. This is huge news. The women who claimed Brigitte Macron was born a man are cleared of defamation because that's how the truth works. It's amazing that they even initially got convicted because of corruption, of defaming the French First Lady. It was this false conviction that the media then touted out as a win, saying, see, she's not born a man. But that actually wasn't what was at root of the case, as many of you guys know that have been following the series. Anyways, what has happened today is that the judges that were sitting at the Paris Appeal Court on Thursday ruled that Amandine Roy, that is the 53-year-old clairvoyant, and Natasha Ray, and she has been absolutely fantastic. She's a 49-year-old journalist, blogger, and researcher that teamed up and first and foremost put Xavier Poussard onto this story when he was having trouble even finding basic facts about Brigitte. And she said, yeah, that's because Brigitte was born Jean-Michel Tragneau. And so now the court has ruled that they had every legal right to make those allegations. More specifically, Brigitte brought the case in regards to a 4-hour YouTube video broadcast where the two of these ladies were sitting down, and Brigitte is alleging that there were 18 instances of defamation. Well, the court has ruled that those 18 instances did not constitute defamation, or they were based in good faith. And like I explained throughout the series, they were never attacking, Brigitte was never attacking the claim that she was born a man. She was being super petty and trying to get them on a technicality of defamation for misspeaking. You know, they tried this with me. Oh, you said this photo was recolorized, but it wasn't actually recolorized. And then trying to get someone into the courtroom, and then the judge says, oh yeah, it wasn't recolorized. And you go, oh, look, we won. It was defamation to suggest that this photo was recolorized when it wasn't. That was the game that they were playing so that they could give the journalists something to tout out as a win. Now they've come back and said, you know what? That's not enough. Okay, that is actually not enough. These women did not defame you.
A lot of attention's been focused on you constantly referencing Christ is King.
And there is a substantial coterie of people, anti-Semites, people who hate Jewish people, who are using Christ the King as what the left would call a dog whistle. And they use it to spit at people. There are pictures of Nick Fuentes, who is a raving anti-Semite, shouting Christ the King in this kind of aggressive, pugilistic way to mean essentially Jews are screwed. You know, that's basically what they're saying.
And you know what else, Jim? I just want to say this to our Christian friends, you know, just to call it as it is and say it straight out, you know, you guys are worshiping one Jew. That's a mistake. You should be worshiping every single one of us, because we all die for your sins every single day. And that's exactly what's going on here. Yeah. We're all God's firstborn, and we're dying for your sins right now because the Jewish people in the land of Israel are the bulwark against the orcs. Okay? The orcs are coming not to a theater near you, but to your home.
Shut up. We don't do anything illegal. You cannot take us to jail. If you are not involved, please go. Shalom, my friend. We bless you.
You're in my country.
You come to the United States, you can say whatever you want to say. That is a free world, yes?
You're not in the United States. You're in Israel.
I understand.
You cannot say whatever you want to say here.
Yes, you can. It's legal. It is legal to preach about Yeshua. We preach at Damascus Gate. The police said it's okay. We preach at Jaffa Gate. The police say it's okay. Please stop. I respect you, respect me.
He doesn't have to respect you.
Huh?
Doesn't have to respect you.
That is the right thing. Are you Jewish? Do you want to honor God? That is the godly thing to do. We respect one another.
The godly thing to do is to kill you.
The godly thing is to kill me.
That's right. That's
yes?
what the Torah says.
The Torah says to kill us.
So he's saying a lot there. He's talking about a lot of political scandals that have happened recently in France. It all seems to be bubbling towards the surface, and he's calling out these people. What I found to be really interesting about that post is his, first and foremost allegations that they're operating under false identities, and that their claim is that they're protecting their families, dating back to things that took place between 1939 and 1945. That's a very specific timeline. It makes me think about the Epstein case and us going into who the Maxwells were, and my suspicion that a lot of these people laundered their names. As I've said, they've laundered their names following World War II. I don't think because they were the good guys. I don't think because they were doing the right thing. I think because they were in power and have maintained a lot of their power. And so it's very interesting that he's making this allegation, and he's saying that a lot of stuff has been happening in the north of France. And like I said, it all seems to be bubbling to the surface. It's just fascinating. There are just so many players that are involved. And I think this is why there is mass panic, because the entire world is paying attention to what's happening in France. The entire world is paying attention to what's happening with Epstein. And these people are depraved. And they are demented, and they, I think, have always been the bad guys throughout history and have seemingly gotten away with it by changing their names and changing their identities. Anyway, shifting gears here, what's been going around a lot right now is Zionists, these ultra-Zionists who have been so masked down in their evil, recognizing that they have lost the quote-unquote PR war. Not that this is a PR war. Nobody's like fighting, having to lie or smear or getting attention by the media to say that what's happening in Gaza is wrong. But you've been seeing this occurrence of like, oh my gosh, like what's going on? So many people dislike Israel. And a perfect example of that is Bill Ackman, who tweeted this. He tweeted, "True, the PR war is as important a war as the war on the ground. A media or social media lie that is not immediately rebutted with the facts becomes a truth, regardless of its falsity. Israel has repeatedly failed to tell its side of the story, and this has caused serious harm to Israel and Jews around the world. Netanyahu, you need to fix this now." Now, to be clear, he's replying to, I'm assuming he's replying in the context of something that may have been false that was published about Israel. But him trying to connect this to a broader point that, oh, this is why we're losing because we've got to debunk lies more quickly. No, that's not why you're losing. You're losing because you're up against the truth, okay? The problem that Zionists are having, the broader issue that you guys are having, is that you are defending evil. You are behaving like psychopaths, and it's caught up. Like, you're going around demanding people lose their jobs. You are pretending that people are not starving in Gaza. You are outright mocking at points, Zionists like Randy Fine in Congress, images of children that are starving, saying that they deserve that. And you can only behave like a sadistic, psychopathic, murderous individual for so long before the world takes notice. I think, again, this is just the way I'm reading the situation, but I think the world has taken notice that there's something fundamentally wrong with Zionism because it requires so many lies, so much hideous reinterpretation. The media that you've had the support of the Western media, certainly in America. It's like a Zionist enterprise, writing all of these articles, ignoring the deaths, ignoring what's happening in Gaza until this very point where it's gotten so bad they can't ignore it anymore. And you go, I don't understand why people don't like Israel. I don't understand why people are hating Israel. This is why. You guys have gone full mask down for the last 2 years. And it takes a special kind of sadistic, murderous mind to continually defend this and go, but what about October 7th? You're behaving like psychopaths, truly like psychopaths. You're just not aware of yourself. And it's just not normal. These headlines are just not normal. And we can go over some of these right now. I mean, you now have the patriarchs and the heads of the churches in Jerusalem who are issuing statements about what's happening. The settlers, the absolute gremlins and goblins who go in and are taking over territory. Nope, not paying for it, not by just taking over people's territory, burning their crops, killing their animals, killing their livestock to make it so that it's unlivable. And just going, we're gonna take it, it's ours. gremlins, goblins, literally, that's what you are. You see these people, they are just the most despicable, debased individuals you could ever imagine. And to do this under the context of Holy Land, like we are chosen by whom? Satan? That's the only thing that makes sense. You have to be chosen by Satan to be doing what you're doing, and then to look at us and go, we're the victims.
What's your thoughts? Please be respectful with your comments. Also, please click the like, click the notification bell, and subscribe to this channel.
Listen, Genesis chapter 11 verse 10 explains the genealogy of Shem. Shem was a black man in Africa. If you repeat this back, Genesis 14 verse 13, Abraham steps on the scene. Being a descendant of Shem, which is a fact, means Abraham too was Abraham, born in the city of a black man called Nimrod, grandson of Ham. Ham had 4 sons. One was named Canaan. Here, let me do some explaining. Abraham, Isaac was Jacob had 12 sons, for real, and these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10, these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10, these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10.